Hello and welcome back to another edition of HG Thunder Talk with Aaron Wagner. I am Brian Rooker, and today we're going to do a very early discussion of something that Aaron and I are very, very fond of, as you maybe can tell if you watch our videos, which is the NFL Draft. And we realize there's roughly 113 days until the names are called at the podium, but it's never too early to start talking about how the Packers could potentially make themselves better. So Aaron and I went out and found a few prospects that we believe could maybe be the number one pick for the Packers, which will fall somewhere in the mid-20s or up to 32. We're
It
hoping
better be
for
32.
Just reporting what it could be, though. So anyway, let's talk about a few of these guys, Aaron. We use the list we're using right now is from NFLDraftCountdown.com. It's a site that I use very, very frequently in our scouting. So let's talk about their number 5 overall pick as far as ratings are concerned, and that'd be Mark Barron, who's a safety out of Alabama. Aaron, Mark Barron last year had 61 tackles, 2 interceptions. He's 6'2", 218 pounds. What they say about him is that he's aggressive and he's physical and he has playmaking ability and coverage. Do you think this is a guy that if Nick Collins is not going to be able to come back, do you think this is a guy that Green Bay would be interested in?
I think this is a guy, yeah. There's another guy we'll mention later, but I think Mark Barron is a very good player that if Nick Collins can't go, and I think we should find out relatively shortly.
Whether Nick Collins will be, because that's going to play a huge, at least in my opinion, a very big part as to what they do draft. Because if you have Collins sitting there and he's healthy,
fine.
Put him back in his spot and let him play.
Right.
I think he's gonna be fine. But yeah, if he's out, that's big, very, very big. So.
But yeah, so let's say Collins. I wouldn't be surprised if Collins is done for a career, right?
Yeah.
If Mark Barron's sitting there, I think he's more known as possibly a strong safety. But at the same time, if he does have that playmaking, ball hawking ability, get him.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
He'd be a good pick.
Not necessarily saying he's my number one guy on my board, but yeah, he's a very talented player. So let's move on. The number 8 overall prospect, according to Draft Countdown, is Courtney Upshaw, who is a outside linebacker from Alabama. Big boy, 6'2", 265. He had 46 tackles, 8.5 sacks last year. Aaron, what do you think about Courtney Upshaw?
I think if he falls to 32, which at this point might, but I think his stock might rise. We gotta scoop him up. I think he'd be a good pick, but at the same time, I think let's say he hovers around like the mid-teens, early 20s. Let's say the Packers don't win the Super Bowl this year. That's only going to make Ted even more anxious, more willing to trade up and get that one stud, which they obviously need on defense, to get back to the Super Bowl and win it.
I agree with you. For me personally, Courtney Upshaw is my number one guy on my board. I don't care if every single player, well, maybe not every single player, but the guys that are going to fall to Green Bay or have a chance to are all on the board. I'm taking Courtney Upshaw. I've been just absolutely enamored by this guy for a few years, actually.
Very talented.
Very talented player, and he's versatile. Inside, outside, rush the passer, play the run. He does a lot of stuff. I think he'd fit in extremely well.
Came from a winning program.
Exactly. That's a big thing, too. Yeah. One of those programs where the NFL isn't quite as big of a leap as it might be for others. It's still a leap, don't get me wrong. But yeah. So we're in agreement. Upshaw's a pretty good guy if we can get him.
If he falls to us, you better scoop him up. That's for sure.
I agree with you. The next guy is the 10th overall ranked player, which is Melvin Ingram, who is a defensive end in college, but will probably go to the outside linebacker in Green Bay if he's drafted by the Packers. His name is Melvin Ingram. He is 6'2", 276 pounds. He's had 48 tackles last year, 10 sacks. His line of note is he's a versatile defender who can play, they say, 3 positions, a defensive end, defensive tackle, and outside linebacker, depending on which system he fits in. And it says he has a knack for the big play. And by what he's put up stats-wise, I believe him. He's a big guy. The only thing that concerns me a little bit is he quick enough to play linebacker?
True. But at the same time, I think he possibly could bulk up a little bit. He could play the end.
So then he brings you versatility that way, too.
To be honest, I haven't, I watch college football, but I don't, as much as I probably should have to prepare for this, I haven't watched many highlights. But I have seen a couple of games watching Melvin Ingram. I've been very impressed. And if we can add add him to the mix, I think he's a very good plan B instead of Courtney Upshaw.
Yeah, yeah.
At the same time, he's a top talent, and if we're hovering,
I think he'll be gone by the
I
time.
think by the time,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, I would agree with you. I agree with you. The combine coming up in a month or two perhaps is a big deal. That's where these guys really will, fluctuate in their draft positioning, and that's where a guy like Courtney Upshaw or Melvin Ingram can fall to us, or where they can skyrocket so many picks in front of us that there's no way that we can even have a chance at getting them. So that's a big deal. The next prospect on our list is a corner by the name of Alfonso Dennard, who's the 12th overall player on the list. 5'10", 205 pounds. He is a corner, like I said, out of Nebraska. He had 27 tackles last year. Did not record an interception. However, even though the stats are lackluster at best, he's still a very talented corner. And sometimes if you're a corner, the lack of tackles is actually kind of a good thing. So, Aaron, do you have any thoughts on
to be honest, I
Dennard?
have no
Dennard?
input.
No?
I mean, I've read a little bit about him, stuff like that. Cornerback could be a possible need. Woodson's getting older. Sam Shields, yeah.
Would you think that corner is a position that is in need? If there's not an elite pass rusher on the board?
If there's not an elite pass rusher on the board
At that time.
he might trade back. The thing is, you gotta remember we have Devon House still on the roster.
Who's
Yeah.
in all respects is kind of an advanced rookie next year. I know he technically is going to be in his second year, but he didn't. I think he's played 2 games and he hasn't started any.
I'm honestly really high on Devon House. I think,
I think he'd be a good
to
player.
be quite honest with you, Sam Shields does not get his act together this offseason and in camp. Devon House could push him, kid you not, to take his spot. I think he's that good from what I've seen highlights in college
Just has to get on the field.
and on the field. And I've heard lots good out of camps and practices about what he shows as well. So that's something to keep in mind too. So, but quarterback is a very high possibility as well.
I'm sorry to my viewers for a second here. I have a phone call. Probably should put that on silent, but no, my ringtone sounds like. So, moving on a little bit, we're gonna go to the 18th overall prospect on the list, Alameda Teamu. I maybe pronounced that wrong. He's a 6'3", 337-pound defensive tackle out of Washington, who had 30 tackles and 3.5 sacks last year. What's interesting about him is that really, with his pass rushing ability and his size, you could put him at the nose and move Raji out to an end if you feel Raji's a better pass rusher. Or if you think Teamu's a better pass rusher, you can keep him at an end and keep Raji in the middle. Either way, I don't know if this guy would be my number 1 guy on my board, but he's an interesting prospect because he could fit into that defensive tackle position and maybe be a Cullen Jenkins type player.
I would agree with you.
It's
I
possible.
think that's another. I think we have defensive end and outside linebacker that are probably our biggest needs.
Right. Anything to rush the quarterback at least.
So if you add him to the mix, slide BJ out, I think you got a very good defensive line there. And you got to keep in mind too that Ryan Pickett isn't getting any younger.
Right.
So I think that would not be a bad pick at all.
I agree with you. Number 20 on the list of prospects is Andre Branch, who's a defensive end from Clemson. Probably a guy that will be playing outside linebacker for us. 6'5", 260 pounds. He had 73 tackles, 10.5 sacks last year. Good player, big size. I think it depends how he converts. We don't have room for a 260-pound defensive end in our system, so he's going to have to be an outside linebacker. But I think he's a guy that definitely can rush the quarterback and help with the pass rush. I don't know. Aaron, you have anything to input on Branch? No?
Not much. I mean, we'll see in the next couple months, how he does the combine and workouts and stuff. But
Yeah, speed I think is going to be a big thing. If he's quick enough. The next guy on this list, the 22nd overall prospect, really intrigues me. This is Bruce Irvin, who's an outside linebacker from West Virginia. 38 tackles last year, 7.5 sacks. He's 6'3", 245 pounds. What intrigues me about him is I think he's one of the best pure pass rushers in this draft class. I don't know how good he's going to be as an outside linebacker. And that might not be the worst thing in the world for us. I think we have a lot of guys who are decent at doing the other things that outside linebackers do. They just don't rush the passer. So, I don't know. I think it hurts his stock if he's primarily a third down pass rusher. However, that being said, that might be what Green Bay needs. I don't know. I think he's a very interesting pick. I think he's a guy that has a lot of potential, that he can really flourish and become a really good pass rusher. But I don't know if Teddy's willing to take a specialist, so to speak.
I would agree with your thoughts on Ted not wanting to take a specialist, but at the same time, you never know with Ted. He's been known to do
weirder
things exactly,
before,
yeah.
and done them successfully.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that.
You win a Super Bowl, you have the right to not have people second guess your opinions quite as much as maybe they would otherwise. The next player on this list is number 23, Vinny Curry, who is a defensive end who probably outside linebacker, 6'5", 242. He had 74 tackles and 11 sacks last year. We're going to keep the list going because we only have a few minutes left here. Got a few more prospects we want to discuss. Levante David is the 25th overall player on the rank board. He had 123 tackles and 5.5 sacks last year. Stats are great. The size is what's here. He has 6'1", 225 outside linebacker. All the talent in the world is there. Speed's good. I believe you're on the 4.6 40. Size. Aaron, what does size mean to an outside linebacker in a 3-4?
Size-wise,
he's 30 pounds.
Yeah.
30 pounds lighter than
if you can't need to be strong and big in football, it's simple as that. If you're not big enough, strong enough.
Is he too small to play outside linebacker in Green Bay system?
I think not. I think Capers could find a way to utilize different packages and plays, but I would lean towards not. As unfair as that is to him, I lean towards not. But then again, DJ Smith, short rookie,
yep.
And he's
but
played
Smith's
pretty good.
more about the height than the weight. You know what I
True.
mean? And that depends. I mean, you look at a guy like David, it's muscle. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Like he's muscle, but yeah, but Clay's muscle too. And Clay's got 30 pounds of muscle on him, and Clay is actually potentially for an elite pass rusher in a 3-4. Clay's actually a little bit small in my opinion.
Yeah, I would
You
agree.
know, not enough that it matters, but I think he's So I don't know. David's gonna be an interesting guy, but I don't know. We'll get down to some of our underclassmen here in the last few minutes. We have the Lewises from Oklahoma. We have Ronell and Travis. Ronell is 6'2", 244, had 59 tackles and 5.5 sacks last year, whereas Travis is 6'2", 227, who had 85 tackles and 1 sack last year. Aaron, does either one of these guys strike you as a potential first-round pick for the Green Bay Packers?
I don't necessarily know if they're a first-round pick. I think Ronell Lewis could possibly, if he's good workouts and good combine, sneak up. But that might be a case of where if there's no one that Ted Thompson wants towards at that pick, that whatever it may be, he might trade back, so he doesn't have to reach too far. So I think that's where they're more second rounders.
More of a Jordy Nelson type draft scenario.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay. Well, hey, you know what? If they get a guy. The next guy we're talking about is a guy that is probably Aaron's favorite prospect on the entire board. This is Nick Perry, who's a defensive end / outside linebacker. He would be an outside linebacker in Green Bay, out of USC. 55 tackles, 9.5 sacks last year. 6'3", 250 pounds. Aaron, why do you like this guy so much?
High ceiling. He's fast. He's big. He's strong. He's from USC. He got
program.
a good program with where Clay
Clay's program.
came from.
Yeah.
I think a major thing that a lot of people said is if he would have came back for another year, he would have potentially been a top 10 pick.
Which is big.
So you think that you give him, coaching staff to coach him up, I think he would have a really high ceiling. That's honestly, I might even want him more than Courtney Upshaw. To be
Really?
quite honest with you,
That's
I
saying something.
think that Nick Perry's ceiling is really high. At the same time, you get end up being a buzz too, but that's the same with everyone.
Everybody has that potential, though. So, all right. And we have one more guy on the list. Markel Martin is a safety out of OK State, Oklahoma State. For all of you who don't know what OK State means. Aaron, we have only about a minute to go.
Yeah.
A little less. Give me a quick. What do you feel on this guy?
I know a lot of people don't like Oklahoma State, how they play defense, not very good, but he's been one of their bright spots. Ball hawk, playmaker. Reminds me a little bit of Nick Collins. He's more probably of a heavier hitter. If we do lose Nick Collins and Mark Barron is not there, which I don't think he'll be, Martin's available. The first, maybe he trades back a little bit again a little later. I think he could potentially be a pick and help our secondary out.
Very.
So that's basically what I think of him. It'll be interesting to see where these guys move up and down the boards.
Agree.
Just something to keep in mind and keep an eye on.
I agree. Well, we are out of time for this edition of Thunder Talk, but that is your 113 days before the draft preview of what Green Bay might be doing. So for everybody at HE Thunder Talk, we bid you adieu.